You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and joining us as he does every single Friday, Justin Ferguson for a little Ferg Friday action, of course, with the Auburn Observer. Justin Ferguson, this has been a fun week, a fun offseason so far for the Auburn Tigers. How are things over at the Observer these days?
You know, pretty good. It was a weird week because there really hasn't been any news breaking, but you can feel a lot of stuff starting to build up, right? Between recruiting and offensive coordinator search, and basketball didn't play this week because it was finals week, so they don't play till Saturday. And so it was kind of a little bit of a calmer week, but also one where it's all right, time to kind of ramp up because things are going to get going again here pretty soon.
A lot of Auburn fans frustrated, concerned that Auburn does not have an offensive coordinator yet. We've talked about the Zach Kill thing that appears to have been true. That has fallen through at this point due to some compliance stuff and miscommunication. Possibly, I probably shouldn't even have said miscommunication there, but Zach Kill's they've moved on from that. Yeah. So to me, Jay Ferg, it seems like Harsin's not even that concerned about it right now. I mean, he's focused on, last minute recruiting. Week he's been flying around the country. He was up in Oregon with, Darius Clemens. He went to Utah and Ohio. I mean, he's been all over the place visiting recruits. I just don't think he's that concerned about finding a new OC. I don't think he's in a hurry at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he's in a hurry. I don't think you have to be in a hurry. I think the carousel is going to continue to spin. I think there's going to be fallout of moves elsewhere that will continue to kind of pile up. And so, it does not seem to have any sort of adverse effect on recruiting, right? They've been able to plug in Trevon Reed out on the trail for them, which I think is a great move. A guy who should be an excellent recruiter for you. And whoever the offensive coordinator isn't going to call plays in the bowl game. And whoever the offensive coordinator is might be in the process of getting ready for a bowl game that's pretty big for them, or, they're in the throes of recruiting itself. I mean, you got to keep in mind, this is where the early signing period has kind of changed a lot of stuff that people think everything's got to happen rapidly. You get coaching changes and moves going into, past early signing day and into, January. And, you haven't even had the coaches convention yet. There's a lot of stuff that, you don't necessarily need somebody right now. I know Auburn fans would love to know who it is, and I get that. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. But as long as it's not having an adverse effect on anything, and really I don't think it is at this point. This week was big on recruiting. Next week's going to be big on recruiting. Wouldn't surprise me for them to have an announcement in the near future, but I think also it's one of those things where I don't think you have to go kill yourself to try to get somebody right now when you can afford to be patient a little bit, and maybe that can lead you to the right guy.
I went on the Press Box this week. It's a radio show that airs throughout Alabama.
Yeah.
I was asked, all right, what's the 1, 2, 3 of priorities? And I will ask this question to you. Brad Law asked me this question, and I'll share my answer after you give yours. But number 1, focus on hiring an offensive coordinator. Number 2, do you focus most on game plan against Houston? And then priority 3, focus on recruiting. How would you rank those 1 through 3?
I would say right now, as we are talking right now, recruiting, offensive coordinator, game planning. Because I think once you get back into practice mode, that switches the Houston priority, kind of moves up a little bit. But right now it's definitely recruiting. And I think that's first and foremost. And Harsin's even said it: recruit. Not only is it the top priority, it might be the only priority at this point in terms of your big ones. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you're not going to, look for other candidates or, continue to recruit your own guys and kind of see how they're feeling about, going to the portal or going elsewhere or, going to the NFL. That doesn't mean you get rid of those, but it is so important right now that Auburn finishes well in recruiting that I think that's the top priority and is far and away the top one.
Yeah, I said recruiting, then I said game plan, prepping for Houston,
and that could easily be it. Yeah, and
go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're going to end up in a situation where Bryan Harsin is probably calling plays or Eric Kiesel is probably calling plays in Houston. So it'll be interesting to see once they get back into the groove of things after early signing period, what that looks like.
Well, the section of the Auburn fan base that seems to be the most upset that this is taking so long are also the same. It appears to me to be the same part of the fan base that really wants Dale McGee from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't think they're going to announce that until Georgia's season is done. Like, I don't think Kirby would let anyone anywhere near him until that's done. And based on, the personality of Dale, he may not even be thinking about that kind of thing. I think he's focused on, them prepping for Michigan. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's we can't have that conversation to the depth that we would want to at this current time. So like, why worry about it?
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, yeah, if you're wanting Dell McGee to be on Auburn's staff, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen until Georgia, like you said, until Georgia's season is over. There's some other ones like Jeff Grimes at Baylor. I think there's going to be a number of teams that going after Jeff Grimes, but like Baylor is playing in a New Year's Six Bowl and just won the Big 12 title, and our bill Grimes could end up going somewhere else this offseason because I think he's going to be a hot commodity for a number of people based on what he did this year at Baylor, based on what he did last year at BYU. But like Dave Aranda's building something at Baylor, and it's a really good situation to be in. You look at a guy like Andy Ludwig from Utah, and that's a name we haven't heard like close tied to this job, but it's obviously one with the Harsin ties, with the familiarity with offense that makes sense. Let's use him as an example. Utah's about to play in the Rose Bowl, and that's a huge, huge deal. And so you might not necessarily have those moves done or make those moves until then. And every coaching situation and every program is different. Some schools are going ahead and making those moves now and saying, well, I'm gonna coach in the bowl game. I'm not going to coach the bowl game. Perfect example. Joe Moorhead's leaving Oregon's offensive coordinator post to coach at Akron. He is going to be the OC for Oregon for one more game, and then he's going to go take on Akron. So it's different for everybody. But yeah, I mean, some of the guys that have been mentioned in connection with the Auburn job are people that I think, might be staying put for a little while. That they still have, their teams this year still have a lot to play for, and you don't 100% need to have somebody in as quickly as you can with offense because they're not calling plays in a game for another 9 months. Like it's a while before they absolutely 100% have to be in there.
Yeah, I want to talk about how Bryan Harsin comes into this in just a moment. Today's show brought to you by our friends at On Location. Let's talk for a minute about kicking things up a notch for the big game, the grand stage, the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 56 at SoFi is less than 100 days away. And On Location, the official hospitality partner of the NFL, is the only place to score a once in a lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package to the big game. Select your exact seats and choose from elite experiences featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with college stars turned NFL legends Troy Aikman, Marcus Allen, and more, plus accommodations at 5-star LA hotels and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. Visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information or search Super Bowl On Location. That's locationexp.com/SB56 or search Super Bowl On Location. Hey, this is it. This is the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite, and you can too. Over 27,000 businesses already use NetSuite, and right now through the end of the year, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/lockedonncaa. Head over to netsuite.com/lockedonncaa. Justin Ferguson with the Auburn Observer, our guest, as he is every Friday. But, we talked about Bryan Harsin calling plays or maybe Kiesau doing all this. But I think he's comfortable, if it comes down to it, just promoting Kiesau when it's all said and done, largely to, and there's reports that have come out that Harsin is leaning towards him just calling plays, which would be fascinating. That would be a fascinating development, but this is
he did some of that at Boise State too.
Did he? Okay. I was about to ask you that question. So how much of it did he do it during his tenure there?
Not a ton, but I do know he stepped in and was the play caller at least a couple of times. Maybe kind of earlier. And look, whoever the offensive coordinator is going to be, is going to run their version of their offense and Bryan Harsin's offense kind of meshed together. That was the thing about Mike Bobo, and it was some of Bobo's offensive background and Harsin's background, but what made sense with them is that they fit together really well.
Sure.
So like somebody asked me this week, it's like, why is Auburn not talking about Joe Brady? It's like, well, Joe Brady doesn't really have any sort of fit here. Like, not saying he's not a good offensive coordinator at the college level. I mean, I think the bigger problem in Carolina is that he never had a quarterback that they felt really confident in. Sure. But his offense is almost exclusively out of the shotgun, tons of RPOs. That is not what Auburn and Bryan Harsin has been trying to build. So when you look at some of the candidates that have been mentioned, even guys who don't necessarily have connections to Harsin or Auburn, there's been a few of them floating out there. At least they have like offenses where you say, okay, well, I can see where that meshes and that fits in with what Auburn's trying to do there. So if Harsin takes it upon himself to be the offensive play caller, that would work. I mean, Keesaw has that experience. If they promote Keesaw from within, one of the things to keep in mind is they still got to make a hire, right? Mm-hmm. Either Keesaw moves to quarterback's coach or he stays a wide receivers coach, and they have to bring in one or the other. And again, like with position coaches at this point, like if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to end up landing on. Still got time to do it. Like, you're not fully practicing for another few months in this spot.
Right. Is there an aspect of the offensive coordinator job at Auburn that people maybe aren't talking about as far as like, okay, they've got to sit with Harsin and prep, how they want to approach things from a roster standpoint offensively, because the transfer portal is going to be crazy. And you got to think Auburn's going to go after some wide receivers and some offensive linemen. Do you think whoever Harsin hires for this job, that comes into effect with it at all?
Meaning that, are they going to be willing to take on what looks like is going to be kind of an overhaul of the roster? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Or, does Harsin select that person or have a certain person in mind, knowing that's like, okay, we're going to have to go get dudes that may have been in college for 3 years already?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just going to be the reality of whoever you get, whether it was a Zach Hill or, if it's a Del McGee or a Damian Craig or a, guy that we haven't even talked about yet. Like, I think all of those are in the spot where if you're bringing in, that recruiting is going to be a top priority, and not necessarily just guys in the 2022 class, but bringing guys in that would fit. And that's an interesting thing. They don't have an offensive coordinator right now, but that has not stopped them from going after and putting themselves in good positions for like blue chips at running back, at wide receiver, along the offensive line, at transfer guys at those spots as well. So I think it's one of those things. There's like Harsin has a vision and he has a top-down philosophy of what things are going to be a part of, and the next offense coordinator is going to be a part of that. They're going to have influence. They're going to have impact there. But this is all coming down from him. And so, yeah, I think whoever the next offensive coordinator is going to be at Auburn, whether it's an in-house hire or somebody from elsewhere or whatever they do, it's all about fit, right? Everybody wants to go get the flashy name. And Joe Brady is a great example of it. Like, go get this guy. He's done this. Like, okay, the most important thing is that, especially if you're trying to run a program like Bryan Harsin's trying to, is fit is first and foremost the biggest thing, especially when you have an offensive-minded head coach that is going to have his DNA on that offense.
Yeah. Joe Brady is the only one I haven't been able to talk myself into it making sense. Just because of all.
And I think he probably ends up in Miami. I think he's a Miami native. He is a Miami native. There's apparently been some mutual interest there. That it makes a ton of sense as a landing spot for them. And they did a lot of kind of RPO stuff with Rhett. So I mean, it would be kind of an easier transition, I would think, for that roster.
That makes sense. Jay Ferg, I want to pivot to, we talked about it a little bit with like the transfer portal and, things are about to get crazy. Obviously, National Signing Day is next week, or the early signing period starts next week. The aspect of roster management is always a big topic this time of year. You wrote about it this week with the Observer, but what do you think the biggest hurdle from all of this is going to be from a roster management standpoint, looking at the next month, this next month with signing day, as well as the transfer portal?
I think the biggest stumbling block right now for Auburn is this. They have to get better on the offensive line, and that's literally the toughest position to build. It is the toughest one to evaluate And out of high school, it's the toughest one to develop. It takes the longest time usually to develop guys.
Right.
Of course, there are exceptions to that rule. And also, if you're a really good offensive lineman and you hit the portal, everyone is going after you. Like the FIU transfer hitting it this week. It was like, oh, Auburn might have a good chance of landing this guy. Well, he's gotten like 2-3 dozen offers already because everybody wants to. Like, look at the number of teams in college football, even the really good ones this year in college football, that had offensive line issues. Okay. You could point to Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, the 3 teams that we think are going to perennially be in the playoff coming in this year. They all had issues on the offensive line. Of course, Alabama overcame them and made it to the playoff as the number 1 seed. But, that's what you're competing against as well. Like, so there's programs that are in better spots than you that are going after them. And so that's what makes it tough. That's what makes it tough. You have to get talent. You have to bring in talent. And I think the thing about Auburn's what's the best case scenario for Auburn's offensive line? I don't think there's a magic bullet here. I don't think there's we just got to hit the portal hard. Well, it's really hard to rely on that for a lot of guys that you want on the offensive line. Okay, well, maybe we'll bring some guys back from and continue to develop them. Okay, well, some of them may come back. A lot of them probably won't. I think it's kind of have to get more high school guys. Well, if you're going to start high schoolers or young guys on the offensive line, it's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough. I think Auburn's got to do all of the above. I think they've got to get a portal guy or 2 if they can. I think they've got to recruit at a really high level. Bring in some more blue chip talent on that offensive line out of high school and JUCO, if you can. Although JUCO, you don't really get blue chips out of that. And then I think they have to develop the guys they already have here, whether it's older guys coming back for another year, whether it's a Killian Zaire, whether it's a Brendan Coffey, whether it's a Keandre Jones, or that next wave. Look and see if a guy like Tate Johnson's ready to roll. Look at what are we going to see about Jaleel Irvin and Cameron Stutz have been around for forever. Like maybe it's their time. Like we've seen these guys, and Auburn's got dudes. They've got numbers, but they've got to develop them as well. So I think it's an all of the above kind of thing. And the tough part is that no one's going to know how successful it is until we get into like next October.
Right.
Because Auburn doesn't play a road game again until October.
It's crazy.
So everything's going to be kind of a little iffy on that.
The amount of offensive linemen that are able to come back, surprise, it's higher than I thought. That number surprised me. And you broke that down. It's almost all of them that could come back if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you think there's this stigma of using your extra year if you're an older guy? I almost feel like there's a little bit of a stigma if you come back and it's like, all right, you're a 3-year starter and you're coming back for your 4th year, but it may be like your 5th year of eligibility. It almost to me seems like there's a stigma among players if you use that. Do you think that's a thing?
Meaning what? A stigma against what? Like what?
It's like, you're not good enough to go to the league, so you're just going to kind of stay at this level as long as you can. That's kind of what I've taken out of it. Do you think I'm making that up in my head?
I mean, the thing is that I don't think anybody on Auburn's offensive line is like a clear-cut NFL prospect right now. Like where I think Keandre Jones could definitely get into that conversation. I think some of the other guys could as well, but like. Yeah, I don't think anybody people are got to make the best decisions for themselves. And some of these dudes have played football for a long time, and some of these dudes have gone through injury after injury in their high school and college careers, and they might just say, you know what, I'm done. Like I'm just hang it up. Time to go do something else. I think if Auburn could bring back a player or 2 with starting experience on their offensive line next year, it helps things out. I know the overall performance as a unit wasn't great this year, but like. Experience still does matter up front. And it's like, take a guy like Tayshawn Manning, for example. He already says he's going to come back and use his last year, but he's going to do it elsewhere. He wasn't a regular starter this year. Time to move on.
Sure.
Makes sense. But yeah, I do think that, it would be different if this was a situation where guys were kind of borderline dudes and like are deciding to come back for another year when they could go to the league. But I don't see that as an option right now. So, coming back their final year, whether it's at Auburn or at elsewhere, I think is a smart decision for a lot of these dudes if they want to still keep playing. If they don't want to keep playing, go live life where you're not getting hit all the time. Like that sounds like a great life.
Yeah, but keep playing football. You can get another master's degree if you want to for some of these dudes that have been around the program for a long time.
And we've seen guys hang around for a while, still making the league. Like Jack Driscoll's a perfect example of that. The dude played a ton of football, and I think I think if Brandon Council would have stayed healthier, he might have been in that conversation as well. But the NFL will use bodies on the offensive line. They will do. So you might just need one more year for that kind of momentum to hit again.
Yeah. I remember talking to Eli Stove right after the season last year. And I asked him, hey, is there any chance that you were coming back? He's like, no, I never really thought about it. I knew going into the season, this was going to be my last year.
Yeah.
And that answer surprised me a little bit because, he wasn't projected to get drafted anywhere and he didn't. But heck, he may have made a team if he hadn't gotten hurt, which is a total bummer and, just terrible luck. But, it's just, I think I'm basing some of that off of that interview that I had with him as far as, he just never even considered it. And I kind of, the way he was talking about it, I almost kind of gathered the fact that it's like, no, I just, that's not for me kind of thing.
Yeah. Every dude's different. Every dude's different. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And I think it's also different at specific positions as well. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And that's a guy that dealt with injury too. So that's a good point. Hey, today's show brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. You can go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15. They've got a ton of different flavors. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. All their bars covered 100% in chocolate, great natural ingredients. And they're absolutely delicious. They look and taste like a candy bar. I got a notification this morning that a new box of Built Bars that I had ordered a few days ago is on the way. Caramel macchiato, which is very exciting. And hey, I got an email also this morning saying that eggnog flavor is available. So if that's your thing, I'm not an eggnog guy. If that's your thing, check it out. All their bars, high in protein, low in calories, low in sugar. Very, very good for you. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is built.com. Business owner or high income professional, listen up. Have you ever considered that by funding a 401k or an IRA, you are potentially creating a massive tax burden on yourself when you retire? Contrary to what you're told by traditional advisors and accountants, a 401k or an IRA does not save on taxes. It just postpones the tax and tax collection. So if you want to learn more about the tax code and how you can use the law to benefit yourself, reach out to our friend Ethan Dahl, the owner of Innovative Financial Solutions. He has clients all throughout the country that are capitalizing on his services. Contact Ethan at 251-243-6038 or email him ethan@ethandahl.com. Ethan Dahl, your alternative to traditional financial investing. Justin Ferguson, what's going on these days at the Auburn Observer? Crazy time, but yet your basketball stuff's really picking up.
Yeah, a ton of basketball stuff. Film room on Jabari Smith went up earlier this week. We'll have coverage this weekend of the Auburn Nebraska game, which should be a very interesting one on Saturday in Atlanta. We put up the roster tracker. So if you are a subscriber to the Observer, we're going to try to keep that up to date as much as possible through recruiting and transfers and all that stuff throughout the offseason. So just a position by position look at kind of where Auburn stands, where they could go moving forward, and how all the numbers start to shake out. And that's going to have a lot of movement here over the next couple of months. So we're going to try to keep it all up to date there.
Cool. Walk me through how I can give a subscription to someone for Christmas.
Yeah, so if you're an Auburn Observer subscriber already, it's super, super easy. There's usually a button on pretty much any of our newsletters where you can click on and hit it, and it says give a gift subscription. And once you do that, it's pretty easy from there. I'm going to do it right now just so I can make sure I have all the steps correctly. So you go to you click on the give a gift subscription. It's going to pop up and it'll give you an option to give a full year or just a month. All you got to do is put in the email address of the recipient. You can attach a nice little note there. You can make it anonymous if you want to, which is kind of interesting, but who knows?
Sure.
And you can schedule it out too. So this is a really cool thing that we got to see last Christmas at this time. You can set the exact minute it goes active. So if you want to, if Christmas morning, you want it to be active when you're opening presents, or if you want to give it for, at a party or something like that, you can set the individual time. It does not have to go live as soon as you open it. So it still can be a surprise. All you need is their email, and all you need is your way to pay. And it literally takes like 30 seconds
That's awesome.
to give a subscription.
That's awesome. Yeah. So keep that in mind with the Auburn fans in your life. It's a great service. Auburn Observer.
Super easy last minute gift. Super easy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're looking around, Yeah, it was like if you were looking at it and like, man, I have no idea what to give. This person is an absolute freak about Auburn football and Auburn basketball.
Auburn Observer.
That's an easy way to do it.
Totally, absolutely, bud. We've got a few minutes left. Let's talk a little basketball.
Yep.
Auburn slated to take on Nebraska, a team that maybe is a little bit better than their record. The record's not super impressive. I was looking at some notes before we started recording, but apparently the flu is going through their team really hard right now. So
went through Auburn's team as well. But Bruce Pearl said on Thursday that he expects everybody to be back to full speed, for the game. But yeah, it sounds like they're expecting absences of some kind at Nebraska, which is tough because they're kind of behind the eight ball a little bit. Team that has not shot particularly well this year and has given up a ton of threes, kind of fell apart, and Michigan hung over 100 on them in their own building earlier this week. But they've got a really, really good point guard. Bruce Pearl believes he's the best point guard they've played all year. Veteran, 6'3", is a guy that has a really high assist rate, one of the best in the country. And they've got some size at certain spots. It'll be interesting to see who all comes in there for Nebraska. But this is a team that doesn't particularly rebound well, doesn't particularly defend the three very well, which should work into Auburn's favor. However, if they're hitting shots, they've got a really good point guard to set them up, and they've got a defense that can cause some problems for you.
So whenever Auburn plays good guards, now it's really fun because it's like I'm legit like I can't wait to watch Zep and KD guard them.
Yeah, and I'd throw Wendell Green in there too. I think Wendell Green's defense to start the season has been one of the bigger revelations, and the fact that we didn't think he was a bad defender, but that was not every time you talk to anybody about Wendell Green, it's like, yeah, his offense is ahead of his defense, and that's still the case. But man, he's playing really good defense as well. Yeah. And this is another matchup. I said it on our show on Thursday. This is another one of those matchups where if you look at the team, it's like, okay, they have a bigger backcourt and they've got some good backcourt pieces, including that point guard. Front court, they're a little undersized. They're not particularly rebounding the ball well. So it's another one of those games, kind of like UCF, definitely like Yale, but it's very much like the UCF game where you can look at it and say, okay, Jabari Smith, Walker Kessler, Jalen Williams, Dylan Cardwell. When you get in the game, you're going to have opportunities to eat. And so take advantage of that. And so what you need from your guards is you guys don't have to be Superman, but as long as you play really good defense and hold your own and contribute in the offense, don't turn the ball over. That's all we may need from you in order to have a really good win. And the good thing is that KD and Zep and Wendell are all guys that, I think this team's kind of figured out and knows that they're going to be a little more wing and front court heavy with their scoring. Although KD and Wendell and even Zep can go off at any moment.
Totally.
But I think in certain matchups like this, these guys are fine with not necessarily being the superstars because they all three of them do really, really good dirty work.
Yeah, no.
Devin Cambridge is another one as well at the three that is doing
this whole team is filled with team first dudes. That's what's making them so fun because there's going to be – you never know who's – you got Jabari is going to pop off, but, like, there's going to be somebody else that's going to just really steal the show. And so lately it's been KD, but I wouldn't be shocked if a guy like Cambridge gets hot one night or maybe Kessler's three finally starts to fall in game. I mean, it could be anybody at any given moment. So that's what makes this team so interesting.
And a big thing there is Jabari is a team first guy. And you know,
sure.
It's not super common with guys who are, elite prospects coming out of high school, these 5-star freshmen. But I mean, I think that's what makes him even more special is just, he's a dude that sometimes was like maybe a little too passive with his, maybe not passive, but like wanting to work in everybody else when it's like, dude, I mean, there are times there are times when you touch the ball, there's nobody on the floor that can guard you. And so I think he's growing into that more, but still finding ways to get everybody involved. And, it's crazy to think that your skinny 6'10" true freshman that could be, a top 3 pick in this NBA draft is also one of the best defensive rebounders in the country. That is effort. I mean, yes, it helps to be 6'10", but like, there's a lot of dirty work and effort that goes into that. And it's about being a team player. Like you're not just going in it. He's not leaking out to try to hit those fast break opportunities that he's really, really good at. As often he's like, he's banging down low and trying to crash the boards. And that means a lot, I think, to the team as a whole.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And then one other element about this game, talking to Zep earlier on the show, on the Monday evening show, he talked about how, he got pretty passionate about this. The fact that like half of the roster is from Georgia and they're getting to play in Atlanta in front of their family. You know, he's an Augusta guy, but I mean, there's pretty much all the guys are from Georgia, with the exception of a few. So that's cool too. They're going to be really excited to play in this game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the guys that are in the rotation. Wendell and Devin and Chris aren't Georgia guys. Leor's not a Georgia guy either, but pretty much everybody else is. And yeah, I mean, it just shows you like Bruce Pearl has really come into the city of Atlanta and said, this is our recruiting territory. We're going to stake our claim here. And they've done a really good job of it. And so, some people will be like, why are they playing Nebraska and Atlanta? That's odd. It's like, they'll take any opportunity to play in Atlanta. They'll take any opportunity they can to play in Atlanta. And I think it's just Nebraska is going to be an interesting matchup. And Bruce was talking about this week. It's a Big Ten team. Like, it's no matter how Nebraska looks at the end of the year, no matter who gets to play for them on Saturday, it might end up being a decent looking win at the end of the season on your resume because it wasn't at home. And I think Nebraska plays a brutal schedule this year. So I think they're going to have some inflated ratings because of it.
And what else are people going to watch at 10:30 this Saturday? Like, I mean, on. So Katie's from Atlanta. Jalen Williams is from Nahunta, Georgia, which I don't know where that is. Jabari's from Fayetteville, Georgia. Zeb's from Augusta. Walker's from Noonan.
Basically Atlanta.
Yep, that's right.
Halfway from here to Atlanta.
Right. Is that it? Oh, then Dylan's from
Atlanta as well.
Yeah. So there you go. So a lot of Georgia dudes. So that's fun. That's fun. Jay Ferg, once again, give us one more quick rundown on what's going on at the Observer and how folks can sign up. And we'll wrap this thing up, brother.
AuburnObserver.com, $6 a month or $60 a year gets you access to everything we've got going on. So we've got podcasts, we got mailbags, we got film rooms, we've got roster trackers, we've got all the good stuff, and we're going to keep our eye on the offense coordinator and recruiting next week. So it's going to be pretty busy.
Absolutely. We'll recap everything that happens over the weekend on Monday's show. Have a good weekend, everyone. This has been Locked On Auburn.